Usually when we talk about how the 2020 Democratic primary is looking, we talk about national polls. And in national polls, Joe Biden has and is leading, followed by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who have sort of been trading off second and third place. But that's national polling. And in practice, the primaries don't happen all at once. They don't happen all on one day. The first caucus is February 3rd in Iowa. The first primary is February 11th in New Hampshire. And so New Hampshire is a very important early state in setting the tone of the primaries. But at the same time, we don't want to give New Hampshire more importance than it actually has, because remember that in 2016, Bernie Sanders handily won the New Hampshire primary over Hillary Clinton, but ultimately was not the Democratic nominee. So let's look at New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, there is a new poll that is getting a lot of attention in which Bernie Sanders has passed Joe Biden. The poll is from Gravis. Biden has been leading every New Hampshire poll dating all the way back to who even knows? I mean, a long time, dating to before he even announced that he was actually running. And now we have one new poll in which Bernie Sanders has passed Biden, sort of. Bernie Sanders at 21, Joe Biden at 15, but the poll has a 6.2% margin of error, and only 250 primary voters were actually asked their view on who they will vote for in the primary. So in reality, again, I'm just the messenger here. I'm just looking at what's on the screen. In reality, even though Bernie Sanders is leading Joe Biden by 6, the poll has a 6.2% margin of error, and it is a statistical tie. So some people are maybe making more of a big deal out of this poll than they should. This is one poll within the margin of error, but the trend has been a clearly anti-Biden trend in New Hampshire. Now, some other important caveats. I'm not being positive or negative. I'm not a Biden guy. I'm a Bernie Warren guy. I'm just being a realist. New Hampshire is Vermont's neighbor. Bernie is from New Hampshire. Winning New Hampshire in 2020 would not really be a sign of anything for Bernie Sanders, in the sense that he crushed Hillary there in the 2016 primary, 60-38, and ultimately lost the nomination. I would actually go further. If Bernie Sanders doesn't win New Hampshire on February 11th of 2020, it's probably a really bad sign for him in the 2020 Democratic primary, because it is a state that he so easily won in 2016. So this is valuable in showing us a trend line. It's valuable in that every primary is worth some delegates, and the more you win, the more delegates you have towards the nomination. We just don't want to give more value to this one poll in one state that Bernie won in 2016 anyway than it deserves. Now, there's another interesting data point from this poll when it comes to electability and the matchups versus Trump. New Hampshire voters say they'd vote for Bernie over Trump 51-41, and for Biden over Trump by an even bigger margin, 53-40. This is interesting because if you look back at 2016, in the general, Hillary Clinton won New Hampshire, but she won by 0.37%. If the Democratic candidate wins New Hampshire in 2020, doesn't matter who it is at this point, by 3, by 4, by 6, by 10, by 13, the way this poll is suggesting, this would be a massive signal in terms of the broader election. But that being said, it's early. Both of these margins, 51-41 and 53-40, they include like 7 to 8% undecided or third-party voters. That is not going to be the reality by Election Day. But even if all of the currently undecided and third-party voters shift to Trump by Election Day, these would still be bigger wins in 2020 in New Hampshire than Hillary Clinton had, and it could be a pretty big signal for 2020. It's all speculative. It's all hypothetical. It's very early. Everyone must vote no matter what you think is likely to happen in your state. Assume everybody should operate under the belief, which may end up not being wrong, that every state could be 50-50 and your vote could make the difference. I mean, literally speaking, that's not going to be the case, but that's the attitude every single one of us needs to have. I'll be voting in the primary. I'll be voting in the general, even though I vote here in Massachusetts. Once again, as far as New Hampshire is concerned, this is one poll, relatively small sample size, statistical tie. Nothing can be assumed. Every vote has to be cast and counted. My question for you today relates to the quality of the campaign that Joe Biden is running. Does anybody in my audience think that Joe Biden is running a good campaign? So I'm not asking you about electability. I'm not asking you about whether you agree with him on the issues. What I'm asking is, as far as campaign strategy and visibility and logistics and debate strategy are concerned, does anyone in my audience believe that Joe Biden is running a strong campaign? I don't see it. I want to hear from you. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at David Pakman Show. And while you're there, follow me on Instagram at david.pakman for the latest urban farming tomato update. Big updates, big news there. Check it out. We'll take a quick break and talk to you in a moment. Today's sponsor is Skillshare, and I'm excited to tell you that everybody in our audience is getting 2 entire months of free access to Skillshare when you click the link underneath this video. Skillshare is the site that offers over 25,000 online courses on almost any topic you can imagine: cooking, meditation, photography, video editing, Photoshop, managing a small business, almost an endless list. And whether you're trying to get ahead in your career, maybe you want to learn new skills that will make you better at your job, you might just be exploring a new hobby and you're trying to find new ways to be creative in your personal time, Skillshare's the perfect place to fully immerse yourself in whatever you're trying to learn. I really enjoyed the class on more advanced video editing techniques because it's something I've been wanting to improve at, but have been very busy hosting the David Pakman Show for the last few years. Once again, the David Pakman Show is giving you 2 whole months of access to every single class offered by Skillshare. After those 2 months, if you want to keep your subscription, Skillshare's super affordable at less than $10 a month. Get better at whatever it is that you're passionate about, or discover something brand new that you didn't even know that you would love, and join Skillshare's other 7 million users by clicking the link underneath this video.